The thing that made you rare is you're only one of two CEOs who actually insisted on calling Detractors himself in the early days.
Winning a client that was unhappy was part of the way we did business. So being able to ring a real detractor that's marked you down and understand it, and then go back to the people that have delivered the service and talk to them about the customer's experience and how the customer felt, was gold. It was invaluable.
You've achieved like quite a dramatic increase in your net promoter score, from a high start, which is not easy to do.
We're in a tough business, you make one mistake in our business and the customer walks.
Yeah.
Employees are now nominating employees to be rewarded in terms of that customer service journey. So it starts off small and it just keeps growing and improving the organization, making the organization stronger.
Without involvement, as you know, there's no commitment. Take us through, why you take this kind of action-oriented, hands-on style of leadership. And when you do it, what are the benefits?
People want to be a winner. They want to be on the winning team.
Yeah.
And if the employees in the business can see that you know where you're going, you've mapped out a plan, and you're literally doing something, they become more engaged in making it happen.
So in terms of the whole Undercover boss experience where you actually got into the, guts of the organization, how did that change your approach in terms of employee engagement?
What I got out of it is people want to do a good job. I'm convinced of that. And you've got to help them do it. And as a leader, it was my job to help people do a good job and be the best they could be. It was all about doing a great job for the customer. And they were angry that management weren't making that happen.
What are some of the challenges that you find CEOs face that someone with your experience helps with?
It's a lonely job being a CEO. You've got to have one face for the board. You've got to have one face for your direct employees. But to have a safe house where you can share, where there's no judgment, makes a big difference to your life.
What do you reckon are the essential characteristics of a successful leader?
This isn't a characteristic. This is a state that you want to create. The first thing you need to work on is creating a winning culture within the business.
There's a gradual realization here that, building a customer-driven culture, is really critical for business success. And that has to be supported by strong employee engagement.
We had Engaged Strategy work with us, and you worked with us for many years, and you became part of our journey. You became part of the organisation, and that's important for everyone in the organisation to see it. It proves consistency. Where we hit roadblocks, where we weren't, where the score wasn't moving as fast as we'd like, you come in and provide guidance.
Welcome to another episode of Strategy Edge, the leadership series, where we talk to business leaders who've achieved amazing results in terms of net promoter score, CX, brand strategies, and employee engagement. Today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tony Chamberlain, who I have worked with for many years, initially in his role as the CEO of Staging Connections and Encore. And what I can tell you about Tony from working with him very closely is he is a unique and rare leader. And the thing that really stands out with him is the fact that he is hands-on and he truly leads from the front. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail as we go along. But I worked with Tony very early on in terms of developing the customer strategy for Staging Connections and then Encore. Then we did the NPS program, we did a bit of leadership development, and then we did employee engagement. So let's just talk about his achievement first up. He increased his NPS score, which was already high, by almost 100%. So he almost doubled it. And that is no mean feat, because if your NPS score is low, it's relatively easy to increase it. But if your NPS score is already high, then it's a real challenge, right? And he achieved it, and I'll take you through exactly how he did it. So, welcome, Tony. Like I said, you're one of those rare CEOs that truly understands the importance of customer engagement and having a platform of employee engagement to kind of drive that forward. You have previously shared with me how this passion for being customer-centric or even customer-obsessed and understanding the value of it is something that you got into at a very young age. Can you please share these stories with our listeners?
Wow. I mean, there's there's lots of stories, but as a kid that was 12 or 13, pushing the lawnmower around the street and knocking on doors to see if you could mow people's lawn, and realizing that if you did a really good job, they'd ask you to come back. Lesson one, if you really looked after them, did the edges, took the grass away, people loved you. And you're learning the lesson, but you don't realize the lesson that you're learning until you take a few more steps in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can think of pretty well every business I've worked in since being 12 or 13, where you have a passion for the client, you really understand what they want and you give it to them,
Mm-hmm.
and you succeed. But what happens is, as the business gets larger, i.e. more people, you realize there's a new challenge. And the new challenge is to get everybody in the business on side to have that same passion for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the secret sauce, really, is, I think Richard Branson says you can't love your customer or care for your customer any more than you care for your employees. And I think that's so right. So right.
Absolutely. And you shared with me that when you were young and you were mowing these lawns, the secret sauce was that you did a little bit of something extra, something that they didn't expect.
You would treat that lawn as though it was your own, in your own house. You would do the edges. You would, you'd go in and quiet. And when you're a kid and you're telling the client, you want $20 to mow their lawn, hey, they're just expecting you to run over the grass with a lawnmower and be gone.
Yeah.
Whereas we put in more care, and it got to a point where I was employing my friends.
No, absolutely. No, sounds good. So I'll just outline another thing that makes you very rare. In fact, one of only two CEOs that I've dealt with, and we've been in this business for almost 20 years. And that is the discipline of calling detractors back. So as you know, with like Net Promoter Score, it's best practice to call detractors back. Why? Because detractors are like, a rotten apple in a basket of apple. They can spread negative word of mouth. They're not as loyal as anyone else. And yeah, as a business, you have to do the best you can to hold on to them. But more importantly, it's a great conversation to have when you call them, because you really get a sense of what is going wrong and what you can do better. Sometimes if people praise you, there's very little learning from it, but calling detractors, there's a lot of learning from that kind of conversation, right? And the thing that made you rare is you're only one of two CEOs who actually insisted on calling detractors himself in the early days. And for me, as far as I was concerned, I was absolutely thrilled, right? Because I thought, this is a clear message he's sending to the organization. But help us understand what drove you to do this? What drove you to actually, make the detractor calls yourself, which typically is done by a middle manager?
I mean, one was the genuine quest to really understand where we could improve.
Mm-hmm.
So, we as a business, even before we put in NPS, we had real pride in ourselves in terms of how we were looking after the client. But we didn't have any measurements. We didn't have a set of railroad tracks to help us in that journey. So winning a client that was unhappy was part of the way we did business.
mm,
So being able to ring out a real detractor that's marked you down and understand it,
mm,
and then go back to the people that have delivered the service and talk to them about the customer's experience and how the customer felt.
mm,
uh, was gold. It was invaluable, and not only that,
mm,
it certainly made people focus when they got a detractor. That, well, if I don't ring this detractor, somebody else is going to ring him, and I pretty well know who that'll be.
mm, mhm. No,
So that
absolutely.
helped too.
Mm. And it sends a strong message, right? Because I think staff, the one thing they do is they're constantly looking at their CEO and the leaders and say, what are they focused on? And if they are focused on something, I should be focused on something as well. And you taking that step to actually call detractors yourself, which some people can look at and say, oh my God, that's a horrible task. I'm calling people who are upset. Suddenly you calling it sent a clear and strong message throughout the organization that you're serious about this, and you're really focused on customers, which I think was really great.
And the other thing is, you can talk to your staff with authenticity about ringing a detractor,
Mm,
because if you look at the typical detractor call, you get the detractor on the line.
mm,
And the first 10 seconds, they're going to vent. So
mm,
you let them vent.
mm,
Then you tell them that, hey, I want to hear more. And you start asking them questions, and you can hear their voice change.
mm,
And all of a sudden, they go from being upset and angry to, oh, this person's going to help me.
mm,
And
mm,
being able to talk to your team about that journey
mm.
helps them, and they realize they're not alone. The customer gives everybody that bit of ginger for the first part of the call.
No, absolutely. And I say to people, when you make the detractor calls, you're kind of like, the brand guardians, like you're the ultimate brand guardian. And it's actually such an interesting call. And most people, more than anything else, they just want to be heard. Most customers want to be heard. And once you do that, you can see a dramatic shift. And they don't actually expect you to call. They don't expect you to view their survey response, and they don't expect you to call. So when you call, it's such a positive experience for them. It's quite amazing.
Actually, the third thing they don't expect is that you follow up and make change.
Yeah.
And when the detractor, you've pleased them on two levels, and then 3 days later you send them a note and say, oh, by the way, this thing that you were complaining about, we've changed our process so that doesn't happen again.
Mm.
Bang! You've now kept the customer, which was the name of the game in the first place.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I say this to people, and they find it hard to understand. But the best opportunity to create a promoter is when you have a detractor. Because,
Yeah,
like you said, if someone actually takes time to listen and takes corrective action and takes accountability and doesn't blame someone or something, suddenly that person, you can convert them into a promoter straight away. No, no,
yeah.
that's great insight. So, another thing about you that's really unique is you were there, in the NPS journey right from the beginning. So, from the time we did our initial customer strategy workshop through to all the various training sessions, you even attended the official NPS certification course where I was an instructor. How important in your mind as a leader is, again, it's similar to the detractor calls, is the visible support of the leader in a change transformation program like this?
I think with employees today,
Mm,
when the chief executive turns up and says, hey, we're going to start a new program, the first thing the employees do is put their hand on their hips, roll their eyes, and say, how long is this going to last? And they get nervous. Why should I engage? Because history tells me that this thing will change in 3 months and we'll be focusing on something else.
mm, mm,
And it becomes really hard to put something new in
mm, mm,
and make it successful
mm,
if the employees are feeling that way. So you need to prove to them
mm,
that everybody in the organization, for a start, the leadership team, are serious about making this happen.
Mm,
And the best way to do it is roll your sleeves up and lead from the top, lead from the front, get involved.
mm,
And it's the old story, isn't it? I'm focused on what my boss is focused on.
mm. Absolutely, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. So, a follow on, and I think you've kind of covered some of the steps as well. So, you've achieved like quite a dramatic increase in your net promoter score. From a high start, which is not easy to do. Take us through the journey and some of the challenges, in particular, how you engaged your staff, because I see a lot of leaders who want to be customer focused. They themselves are customer focused, but getting their team members to do it is another story altogether. So take us through the journey, the challenges, what you faced and how you did it.
I think the key steps at a high level was convincing myself that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Once I was convinced, was then to convince my team, my direct reports that, hey, we're going to do this.
Mm,
I think the other thing that made a big difference was employing a resource to look after Net Promoter, so that you're not saying, hey, we're going to put Net Promoter in, but really you're going to do everything you're doing now, and here's a little bit more for you to do. So we employed a resource to pick that up and drive it for us,
mm,
and to train us, to
mm,
help us through when we had difficulties, to help us through, to make sure that we were on top of our detractors, to make sure that we were getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
mm,
And it worked beautifully.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So when you did it and you saw your NPS score increase, could you get a good sense of the economic benefits of, higher customer engagement? Did you start seeing improvements and impacts?
I think there are a number of improvements. Firstly, we're in a tough business. You make one mistake in our business and the customer walks.
Yeah,
So keep retaining customers,
yeah,
um, demonstrating to your key clients that you're proactive about measuring the customer experience
yeah.
and sharing the data with them. And the data is the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm,
Showing them what you're doing about the ugly. One of the things I missed in terms of successfully implementing Net Promoter into the business
mm,
was investing in
mm,
training the teams, training people in ideation.
mm,
The small workshops that you ran for us in terms of explaining to people what this was all about, how it was going to work. Because people see you investing in resources to help on the
mm,
journey makes a big difference as well.
mm,
So come back to the net benefits from that from implementation of NPS.
mm,
Without a doubt, I think it was shown in our revenue line.
mhm.
And also the employees get a lot of satisfaction. Employees love, because we
Absolutely.
we also put in a reward system
Yeah.
where people were giving clients a great experience, getting positive feedback, and we were rewarding those employees for it.
Wow.
And
Okay.
if I look at the organisation today, employees are now nominating employees to be rewarded in terms of that customer service journey. So it starts off small and it just keeps growing and improving the organisation, making the organisation stronger.
Wow. That's amazing. So I'm going to share this story. You've heard me share it with you, and it's about speed ideation, which you just mentioned. So, so this is about you being very hands-on and kind of leading from the front, and there's no better example. Um, so for the audience, we have this workshop where we train leaders in terms of how to quickly, and the operative word is quickly, get their teams together and generate innovative ideas, right? And it serves multiple purposes. The way it's designed, it's meant to generate a lot of ideas quickly, but there's also a quality kind of culling process. The best ideas bubble up to the surface. But the But the most interesting thing about this is that staff get involved, and without involvement, as you know, there's no commitment. So they get a chance to contribute to building these great customer experiences. So we have done a bit of leadership development work with Tony and his team. But we did a training program in terms of how to facilitate the speed ideation session. And 6 months later, I flew into Sydney and I rang Tony up and said, "Do you want to catch up?" So he says, "Yeah, sure. Come to my office." So I go to his office and he gives me this very thick document, which was the Staging Connections at that time business plan, right? And there are all kinds of people, and sometimes people are like software programs. There are some people who are like Excel, some people who are like Microsoft Word. They like to see a lot of detail, and some people like me who are high level that just want to do PowerPoint. I'm like a PowerPoint personality. And I saw this big document, and Tony says, "Have a read," and I go, "Oh, do I really want to read such a big fat document?" And I start leafing through it, and I see speed ideation, speed HR, IT, sales, marketing, everywhere, speed ideation, speed ideation. And I go, "What have you done with speed ideation?" He said, and then you said to me, "I took it throughout the organization. We used it as the tool to develop our business plan, right?" And then I remember when I was doing some employee engagement work with you. So as you know, like we don't believe in presenting results. We believe in taking action immediately. And you're a very action-biased person as well. So immediately after the employee engagement survey, we did an action planning session, and I was facilitating this time. And one of the staff members says, "Oh, we've done this before." And then he went on to say, "Tony is the best facilitator in the whole organization." So again, take us through, why you take this kind of action-oriented, hands-on style of leadership. And when you do it, what are the benefits? I think you've covered them, but I think it's such an important point and so unique about you, the fact that you go to the front, you're hands-on, you get your hands dirty, and it seems to have a huge impact in terms of your staff.
Yeah. It's funny when I think back to my first week inside of Staging Connections, the first thing you go for is the business plan. Where's the business plan? You're in the job, let's have a look. And I pulled out 3 business plans, and these documents were beautiful. Bound, beautiful photos, beautiful presentation. So I think, this looks good, sounds smart. So then you go and talk to people about the plan, and they start scratching their head. What are we talking about? What plan? This plan. Haven't seen it, don't know anything about it. And you think, gee, what a waste of energy. So, and I think it's a sin in a lot of businesses where people say, got to create a business plan. They create a business plan, and then it goes away in the cupboard until next year when we have to do another business plan. Whereas, I suppose my philosophy is everybody needs to know where we're going on the journey. And if they get to talk about some of the steps or some of the roads or some of the avenues we're going to take on the journey, and they truly believe in them, it makes the journey a lot easier for all of us. People believe in what they're doing. And we actually, over time, we got the business plan down to about 12 pages.
Wow.
And as a leadership team, we could do it. We could put a business plan together in maybe 3 2-hour sessions. So, we'd review where we were, we'd look at our competitors, we'd look at what we wanted to achieve, and then we work out how we were going to do that. And I'd facilitate and we'd share the task amongst the team. And I can remember when we'd have people coming to visit from the US and they'd want to see the plan. Fine, I'll get the team to take you through our business plan. And rather than sit with me on a tombstone, the team would sit and tell them, here's what we said we were going to do, here's what we've done, here's what we've still got to do. And then you get those leaders to share that with their teams. People want to be a winner.
Yes.
They want to be on the winning team.
Yeah.
And if the employees in the business can see that you know where you're going, you've mapped out a plan,
Yeah,
and you're literally doing something, they
yeah,
become more engaged in making it happen.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. No,
And yes, I've never been one to hide in the office. You know, like even when we do something wrong, hey, I'm the first to admit it, first to put my hand up and say, hey, listen, shouldn't have done that. This is what we should have done, and
mm.
here's how we're going to fix it.
Look, according to our research, when we do employee engagement with clients, when we do employee engagement with benchmarking, what comes out is very clear. There are a few key drivers, if I can call it that. There's many things you measure, but these are the main things. First one is leadership, right? It's like if your leadership is bad, your culture is going to be bad, your customer experience is going to be bad. I think I was speaking to Elaine Jobson, the CEO of Jets, and she says in her book, it's like the culture of the organization is the shadow of the leader, right? So, and culture leads to experience. So that's number one. The second thing we found is that people want to be appreciated and recognized, right? The third thing we found is that people want kind of like a line of sight. They want to know what is the organization doing and what's my contribution towards achieving that. The next thing they want to really get a sense of, and this is a key driver, especially for leadership, is what is the strategy and direction, right? On the one axis. And on the other axis, it is like, am I personally committed to making it successful? Now, the ideal group that give you a lot of discretionary effort, are very loyal and all that, are what we call champions. So these are people who understand your strategy and direction and are personally committed to making it successful, correct? So that's what you need to aim for. The group on the left-hand side, so these people understand your strategy, but are not personally committed to making it successful. We call them bystanders, and they are a dangerous group. They are a group that will kind of white ant your strategy, right? They won't support it. The obvious next group is the weaklings, so people who don't understand your strategy and are not personally committed to making it successful. And the last group are loose cannons. So these are highly positive and happy people who will be committed and do anything, even if they fully don't understand it. Now, when you take this quadrant across different departments like sales, marketing, it gives you a real sense of, here there's an issue with commitment, here there's an issue with understanding, so you can then take corrective action, right? Now, the interesting point about commitment is commitment comes when you're involved, right? And what you talked us through is that sense of involvement. It's like someone doesn't come down from Mount Sinai and say, we will do this, they're inviting you to participate in the whole thing. And the last thing is emotion. If you want your customers to feel happy and valued and cared for, which really drives net promoter scores up, your staff have to feel that first because they can't give what they don't have, right? So that's the kind of thing we have found. And I think what you just outlined is this case of getting people involved. And once you get them involved, they're committed and then they buy into it, then they go above and beyond to do it. So that is really, really amazing. So the next thing I want to cover off, which is very interesting, is in my experience, I've found that whenever you want to do major transformation, within an organization, or you have this big program, or you want to achieve massive sales results or whatever, um, in all those very big successes, the one thing I've always done is I've taken the CEO and the executive team and taken them to the front line, you know? Like go to the front line, go to the cold face, see what's happening out there. Don't sit in your ivory tower and make kind of decisions. Once you go out there, you will know what's working and what's not working. And I have this strong belief that developing strategies is good, but if it's not working tactically, your strategy will fail, right?
Yeah.
So it's better to actually understand, what are the tactics required and then go up backwards and develop a strategy. So I used to always, in all my programs, in a very clever, nice way, get them to go to the front line, ideate with their teams, support them, and so on and so forth. But your experience is next level because you were an undercover boss and you literally went in disguise into the organization. Tell us about that experience.
That was funny. Um, it was an interesting experience. And, I can think of one thing that stands out to me was I went to Queensland, and in Queensland, there was a new truck driver. He's brand new to the organisation. So the way the producers introduced me was that somebody that was older age and re-entering the workforce. So anyway, I meet him in the dock in our Brisbane office, and the truck gets loaded, we have morning tea, we hop in the truck, and we're driving down the street. And he sort of drives out of our office, drives around the corner, and he drives straight into a cafeteria, and he says, "Oh, it's breakfast time." And I said, "But we just had morning tea." He said, No, it's breakfast time. So I think, okay, all right. And the producer's in my ear saying, "Stop being the boss, just go along with it, go along with it." So we go and have breakfast. He walks into the cafe. Everybody knows him by his first name, and they give him his usual order. And anyway, we get back in the truck. We're actually driving down to the Gold Coast. He's driving about this far off the bumper of the car in front. He's beeping, and I say, you're driving a truck here that's got Staging Connections written all over it. It's a terrible advertisement, and I start telling him to stop, Leorising around. The producers in the car behind us, there's a camera on the windscreen, so everybody knows what's going on here. Anyway, the producer takes me out of the car, puts me into his car, and says, "Look, I just need to separate you guys, and you've got to calm down." And anyway, we turn up at the Sheraton Mirage.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and I had a look, and there's about 5 of our technicians. And I go back to the producer and I say, "There's no way I can go in there and work, because all those guys, I was talking to them here last week, they know me. There's no way this wig and beard's going to get me out of this."
Yeah.
So they said, "Look, you two just stand here." And we waited for 20 minutes, and the producer decided to tell everyone to go home except me and the truck driver.
Right.
That was good, but there was only one problem. There was about 6 tons of equipment that had to be loaded in the truck.
Ooh, okay.
And that was me and the truck driver, nobody else. So, so anyway, then I saw a totally different perspective of the guy. I can't think of his name, but he, okay, we've got to get this work done. And he went in, he mapped out where the equipment was, he mapped out where it should go in the truck. He was conscious of not damaging the equipment. He was conscious of getting it all into the truck, packed properly. Anyway, we did it. And I was blown away by how much he cared about his job. There were some things that really bothered me on the way there, but this guy did a marvelous job. And so what did I get out of that? What I got out of it is people want to do a good job. I'm convinced of that. And you've got to help them do it. And as a leader, it was my job to help people do a good job and be the best they could be. It's a little bit, you were giving examples there about the people that are engaged, non-engaged. When I first joined Staging Connections, it was losing money hand over fist. And I can remember going to talk to groups of staff around the country, and it was all about just getting to know them. And the thing that used to just amaze me was the issues they would bring up were all about our efficiency, how we were servicing the customer, the quality of the equipment. And I used to say to the people with me, I didn't hear one person say, "I want more pay, I need more money." It was all about doing a great job for the customer. And they were angry that management weren't making that happen. And you could hide behind any rock you wanted to hide behind. But the truth was, the employees at the front line knew what needed to be done and were very frustrated because management weren't doing their job.
Wow. Okay.
And that's pretty powerful. It's pretty awesome to have a workforce like that. And it's something you can't waste. You've got to get in and facilitate, make it happen.
You've got to fully leverage it. So in terms of the whole Undercover boss experience, where you actually got into the, guts of the organization, How did that change your approach in terms of employee engagement, if at all?
I think the biggest change that I made from that was safety. In terms of employee engagement, I knew we had a job to do. And my view, or in every business I've been in, is you've got to get the employees on side. Employees need to be engaged to make anything successful.
Mm.
But I walked into, it was in Melbourne. I walked into Melbourne with a camera crew.
Mm.
The general manager of that state knew we were coming.
Mm.
And we went out the back and there were people spray painting signs and cutting signs, no safety gear whatsoever.
Mm.
I was livid. I couldn't believe that, we weren't caring for the employees. Then we actually started, I actually recruited somebody just to help us, not to look after safety. Safety is management's responsibility.
Mm.
But we started, our lost time injury frequency rate was 38,
Mm.
and we took it down to 2. Took us 3 years. But if you're going to look after the employees, you've got to make sure that they're going home the same way they came to work. That they were being looked after. Yeah. So I think the biggest change was definitely safety.
It's interesting, we use the 6 human needs when we measure employee engagement, and it's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, it's almost like that safety, it's almost like a cornerstone of your employee engagement strategy, because when people believe you really care about them, and safety is a good way to do it, then it just builds a platform for everything above it, But if you don't
Yeah.
get your basics right, then to get any higher level things becomes really challenging. So, talk us through TEC, or the executive connection, and what it is and what do you do there?
Yeah, the executive connection is something I wish I'd have found 20 years ago when I was a CEO.
Wow. Okay.
The executive connection has renamed as of this financial year to Vistage. It's been going for more than 40 years across the world.
Right.
And what we do is we sell, or we have CEOs who are members. We have groups of usually 12 to 20 people. We have access to 250 subject matter experts. So, for example, in my group, I've got a group of 12 people. In my group, our next meeting, we're going to spend 3 hours looking at the latest AI that hasn't been released to the public yet. It's going to be released in September, but the person we brought in has early access to this AI, and it's incredible. So we spend that time learning about AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is we'll bring experts in and educate us on things that we can take, or that the CEOs can take back into their business. So that's one part of the meeting. The other thing that we do is we use the wisdom that's around the table to solve problems. So a CEO might have a particular problem within his or her business. They'll bring that problem to the meeting, and we've got a system to process that problem, and we get the wisdom of the group to solve the problem. And it's amazing. You get seasoned CEOs that come in, participate, share problems, and they get blown away by the results. Because the way we put the team together is we have people from very different industries, so they look at things and process things differently.
No,
It's
absolutely.
using that wisdom. So it's a lot of fun. It's something I get a lot of enjoyment out of working with these CEOs and helping them improve the quality of their lives, improve the quality of their businesses.
So tell me something, when you talk to these CEOs, and being a CEO is sometimes quite a lonely position, because you can't talk to people internally about certain things, and who are you going to really talk to that understands? So I think a forum like this is great in that sense. What are some of the challenges that you find CEOs face, that someone with your experience helps with.
Yeah. I think the key challenges today, employee engagement, finding the right employees, not having employees, employee attrition. That that's a big issue. Cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
and cybersecurity, people tend to run towards the IT department, and that's not where the answer is. The answer is in the leadership of the organisation, because where the weakness is employees clicking on links and not following policy properly. That's the weakness in the organisation. That's a challenge. And then, we've got an economy that bounces around, inflation. Right now there's a big push on cost. The pressure on wages is a big issue for CEOs today. When we look into the future, it's a little bit uncertain. It's a bit murky. So I think they're the real issues that people are facing today.
Right, right. Do you know what's interesting? When you talk about Vistage, it reminds me of a forum I used to be a part of years ago called the Customer Loyalty Futures Forum. And I did a member session once. And one of the people in the forum in Australia they had forums all over the world, UK, US, Africa, etc. One of the people who attended was a professor from the Macquarie Graduate School of Management. So I did my member study, and it was about brand rejuvenation. And after I did it, he called me, and he was older than me, so you have to be differential and a little bit respectful. So I went over, and he said to me, "This stuff you just presented, is it your IP?" So I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "You're wasting your life working for a corporation. You should go out on your own, right?" So you won't believe this. He infected me with the germ of going out on my own and starting my own consultancy. And it's literally like a case of I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, but I did know I had to do something, right? And that is what led to Engage Strategy. If it wasn't for that one comment, it would not have happened. So I'm sure, in Vistage, there are a lot of these kind of moments, that are pretty much, change people's direction in their lives. So it sounds really good. And glad, you're doing something that you really enjoy.
I love it. The other thing, it's interesting that you bring that up, because sometimes when I'm out networking to find members, I come across people that were members of Vistage or members of Tech 10 years ago. And I
Yeah.
must have come across 20 people. And, they say, it was a wonderful experience. I gained so much. I'm
Yeah.
still in touch. I'm still in touch with the team. We
Yes.
still meet regularly. And
Yeah.
that's a really good legacy to have.
Yeah. No,
And,
absolutely.
and yeah, and I'm really keen to be the best I can be at doing that, because I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. And this thing, you probably get a feeling of making a real difference, right, in someone's lives, which is really good.
Yeah, you can actually help people with pressure points, because you said it before, it's a lonely job being a CEO. You've got to have one face for the board, you've got to have one face for your direct employees, but to have a safe house where you
Yes.
can test,
Yes.
where you can
Yes.
share, where there's no judgment,
Yes.
makes a big difference to your life.
It does. It does. It absolutely does. So, for all the leaders that are listening to this, having been a successful leader yourself and being quite a unique leader in terms of achieving amazing results, being hands-on, etc., etc., what do you reckon are the essential characteristics of a successful leader? Something that differentiates a successful leader from an also like a has-been. Because I
Yeah.
can tell you right now, when I go out there, the people to see real leaders out there is very rare. It's like, there are a lot of managers out there, very few leaders. So what characteristics do you believe someone needs to have? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think this isn't a characteristic, this is a state that you want to create. The first thing you need to work on is creating a winning culture within the business.
mhm.
So creating a culture where people know what you're doing, know where you're going. Now, what are the characteristics to make that happen or to enhance what's already there? Because you can't just create a culture, it's there, you can impact on it, as you well know. So I think having a vision and sharing that vision, openly communicating, and the old story of tell them and tell them again. Is to work on repeating the same message just so people would understand this is what he wants, this is where we're going, this is what the team wants. Being trusted, being authentic. People can see miles off when you're not being authentic. They can smell that a mile away. They won't say anything, they'll just look and nod. But the trust is something that there can never be enough of, and you've got to work hard. You've really got to work hard to have it.
Trust.
And then I think being resilient, because you fall over. You fall over many times, and you've got to get up fast and dust yourself off and go again. I think characteristic-wise, there's the marketing and the understanding of P&L and all those things. But I think in terms of real characteristics to drive it forward, if I had to boil it down, that's what I think they are.
Wow, cool. Sounds good. So let's look at CEOs out there, like there's a gradual realization. It's not fully there yet, but there's a gradual realization here that, building a customer-driven culture, is really critical for business success. And that has to be supported by strong employee engagement. Now, given someone like you who's been there, done that in that sense, what advice would you give any new CEO who wants to embark on building this kind of culture? What are the first things they need to do, and so on and so forth?
I'd say it's a journey. The first thing you've got to realize is this isn't something we're going to put in today and in 3 months' time everything's going to be working perfectly. It's a journey, and you need to treat it as such and set milestones to make things happen. You need to make sure you invest in training the organization. It's all well and good to stand up and preach about how we need to look after the client, the client, the potential client. But we need to have accurate and good measurement systems within the business to see how are we doing. We need to make sure there's feedback to the entire organization. And we also need to give people latitude to fix things that are broken and make sure that works within the business. If I look at the customer service journey or the NPS journey inside of staging, I think getting the team involved, doing the training, having a point person that works with all the teams to keep everybody moving forward, that gets the reports done, that waves the flag when things aren't happening. I think that was a critical role. That was Brooke McCamley.
Yes,
I forgot it before. And she did a wonderful job. We sent her to the NPS. There was a conference that we sent her to in London, I think.
Yes.
But we invested in her and she grew in that role. Yes. And that transferred into the organization. It was a wonderful way of making that happen.
Yes, Brooke was very tenacious, very tough, pushed things through. Yes, I do remember her going to that London conference, and she was at the certification as well with you.
Yeah,
so, No. She was good. She was very professional, very good, very effective.
So that's a luxury to have that leader, but you have that leader with the support of the leadership team.
Yeah.
Just makes the journey so much easier.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Hey, I'll share something with you, right, which you'll completely relate to. This friend of mine wrote a book, and I was on the expert panel. And when you talked about it before, when you come down and you deliver a strategy, right? and staff will nod their heads. So they intellectually understand it. But then the strategy still dies. It doesn't die straight away, but it dies the death of 1,000 cuts. And the reason is because you haven't answered all the questions. So most people come from Mount Sinai and they will answer the question as to what is this strategy, right? So they'll explain it. So if you use something like NPS, you'd go, well, it's about likely to recommend, it's competitive, we need to increase loyalty, blah, blah, blah. Why are we doing it? Oh, we're doing it because we've got to be competitive, we've got to do better than our competitors, customer experience is important. So what and why is usually done and presented, and that's when you get staff nodding their heads and saying, oh yeah, this is all very good. But then the next thing, which you touched on as well, is how do I do it? Yes, I intellectually understand I need to create promoters, but how do I do it? And linked immediately after that is, are you going to give me the skills and resources to do it? Like, are you going to train me? Yes, I intellectually understand I need to do it, but are you going to train me? Because, yeah, I want to do it, but I'm not sure exactly how, right? And that's when a lot of organizations fall apart. They go, do it, do it, do it. So they're already doing enough, and now you plonk something else on top of them, and they go, how the hell do I find time? It's like a typical call center situation. It's like, oh, I want you to cross-sell. I want you to improve NPS. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. But I want you to stay on the call for only 2 minutes and then end the call, It's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Impossible.
Yeah, impossible. And then the last thing, which again leaders forget about, is what's in it for me from a staff member's perspective. So when you do this, what's in it for me? And it's only when you answer all those questions that you can get change happening. And like you said before, it's not a 3-month thing. It's never a sprint. It's a marathon, and you've got to, brace yourself for a marathon.
The answer to the staff was job security. That's what's in it for you. I mean, we put other things in, but it was really exaggerating the point that, hey, we can't just afford to be losing customers. And if we start keeping our customers, it makes our roles secure. That's not said in a threatening way. It's reality.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I think the other thing that we haven't really discussed, Chris, was choosing the right partner. We had Engaged Strategy work with us, and you worked with us for many years, and you became part of our journey. You became part of the organisation, and that's important for everyone in the organisation to see. It proves consistency. Where we hit roadblocks, where we weren't, where the score wasn't moving as fast as we'd like.
Yeah.
You come in and provide guidance. So you can't underestimate that either.
Look, it was fun. And I always say to clients, you will get value from me if you take me inside the tent, But if you don't take me inside the tent and there are things I'm not aware of, I really can't help. But with Staging Connection, it was really good. When you were talking about the Sheraton Mirage, I remember presenting to your team there once because I'm in Brisbane. But all the interactions I've had with your team at a leadership level, at a staff level, have always been, really good fun, because at its core, the whole organization had a culture of really wanting to deliver great experiences. And, nothing better than that for someone like me. So it was really, really good.
Yeah, it was. It was fun.
Yeah, so there you go, Tony. Thank you very, very much for sharing all your wisdom and your insights and your experience. And, definitely, like I said, 2 things that are very unique about you. One is, you get your hands dirty, you lead from the front. That's very rare nowadays. And the second thing is, you're only 1 or 2 CEOs that actually call detractors themselves initially, which send such a strong message throughout the organization. And guess what happened? Both those organizations where the CEOs made those detractor calls, both their NPS scores increased dramatically. So it shows the power of leading from the front and setting a great example. Thanks again, Tony.
Yeah, pleasure. Absolute pleasure.